This edition of Talk to Me is brought to you by Cobb County Freedom and Justice Fund, continuing the march to freedom and a call for justice on the local level in Cobb County, Georgia. Also, International Piano and Voice, Tomas Gerdiken. Learn online live with the German Prince of New Orleans piano, Tomas Gerdiken. It's time once again for another edition of Talk to Me. And now, here's Emmy himself, 8-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, Maynard Eaton.
Hello again, my friends, and welcome to Talk to Me, a weekly conversation with business leaders, political leaders. This time we have the lady who runs the arts in Atlanta, a cultural icon herself, Ms. Camille Russell Love, the Executive Director, the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs. Camille, may I call you Camille? Is that okay?
Absolutely. You've been calling me Camille for years.
I want to start out with, I don't know if you heard the introduction to that music by Alexei Marte, but he was supposed to be in the jazz festival this year, which had to be called off. How did that work out? That had to be a big disappointment for you, canceling the jazz festival.
Well, what we really have done, Maynard, is just postpone it until next year. So we anticipate Alexei Marte and all of the artists that we were going to have. There are a couple who have not committed, but for the most part, the festival will happen over Memorial Day weekend, God willing, and the coronavirus leaving, Memorial Day weekend 2021. And yes, it was disappointing. Yeah, but it was something that we had to do. But going through that process allowed us to rethink how we could deliver programs to the city of Atlanta. So as you may have known, we did do a 31-day of jazz with local musicians called the Atlanta Jazz Sessions. And it basically allowed us to get some experience with how we could deliver programs virtually, which now brings us to today where we're doing Elevate, and we're doing Elevate virtually.
Let's talk about Elevate. Celebrating the West End of Atlanta, is that correct? What is Elevate and why Elevate?
Well, Elevate is a public art festival whose intention is to go into a community, infuse it with art and culture over a period of time so that the community can then reevaluate what cultural offerings it has normally and maybe incite it to have it consider adding more cultural offerings in their community moving forward. So Elevate is a week-long celebration. This year's Elevate focuses on the West End community, and the spirit of the festival is to deal with social justice this year.
Speaking of social justice, murals have proliferated throughout the city of Atlanta. James Orange, most recently, John Lewis, of course, and C.T. Vivian. What is it with the proliferation of murals, and what does that say about Atlanta's arts community?
Well, Atlanta has really become what I'm going to refer to as a free wall city. So because we are not enforcing the murals on private property ordinance as a result of a consent decree that happened as a result of some artists and some property owners suing the city, we have now seen this proliferation of murals across the city, which is really a good thing because it now incentivizes property owners to embellish their buildings in a way that really improves the environment, provides income to artists that the city doesn't have the resources to provide, and really has allowed for the democratization of art. You don't have to go to a museum to actually see these artworks across the city. And I really think that it is a good thing. I'm glad to see it, and glad to see so many artists being employed by private property owners to enhance their environments.
Speaking of supporting artists, activists and artists like Okiba Jabalo has consistently expressed about Atlanta's inability to support artists or fund them. Is that a problem for you, making sure artists under your watch have a livable income or can make a dollar?
Okay, so the City of Atlanta and its Office of Cultural Affairs operates off of a budget. And our budget is allocated primarily to support arts and culture in the city. We do that through the Contract for Arts Services program, which supports both arts organizations and individual artists who apply for grants. Only artists who live in the city of Atlanta are eligible for those grants. So some artists who may be critical of our policies don't even live in Atlanta and therefore can't access the funding. But recently, as a result of the pandemic, we had a specific program that went out to encourage artists to create, and in exchange to get a stipend for that creativity. And we recently published a volume of a magazine that documents what we did for over 100 artists in this city. We actually commissioned artists, visual artists, photographers, choreographers, musicians, and writers to tell us about, through art, what had happened to them during the pandemic. And so there is a magazine that is available at creative loafing outlets called Pandemic 2020, which documents our support for individual artists in this city. In my estimation, no city can ever do enough to support artists. And it isn't, quote, our responsibility to employ artists. We don't provide full-time jobs for artists in the city. But what we are trying to do is be a catalyst for creativity and encourage artists and encourage the greater community to support artists who live and work in Atlanta so that they will continue to live and work here.
Camille, when talking to some artists in the community about the city of Atlanta's selection of artists to support some claim that only the same few artists are chosen. Is that a fair criticism or unjust?
I think that's unjust. I don't know what the same few artists are that they are referring to. However, the city... They mentioned Radcliffe Bailey as one. Okay, let me say this. The city has a competitive process for any commissions, and I think that they're referring to Radcliffe Bailey's commission. He got a commission at the airport probably 15 years ago. Radcliffe Bailey recently was commissioned by the city under Kasim Reed's administration to do a project that's going to go into the Cascade Nature Preserve. Fulton County commissioned Radcliffe Bailey to do a commission at the Auburn Avenue Library, Research Library. Those are the commissions that I'm aware of. My office has not commissioned Radcliffe Bailey to do any commissions lately, not any under my watch. And so what the city has is a competitive process when there is a commission opportunity, which comes when the city is creating a new building or a new project, and the percent for art money, which allocates 1.5% of any eligible construction funds for the inclusion of art in a project, then we have a competitive process. And so a call for artists goes out. Artists then respond, and then those art applications are reviewed by a panel who then recommends who we go with. So I don't think that there is any preference for any artist, especially Radcliffe Bailey. I know and love Radcliffe. I respect his work, but I think it is unfair for there to be this conversation that Radcliffe is the only artist who's getting work. What artists have to do is that they have to pay attention to when commissions are being offered and then apply for them. And then if they have the qualifications, then they are then eligible to be considered. There are a lot of artists who want to be in that ballpark, but maybe they don't have the experience to basically complete a project like that. So I didn't know that that was what you wanted to talk with me about. Otherwise, I would have been better prepared with some additional information. But there is a process. We ask artists to follow it. And then we try our best to be fair and impartial about who actually gets the commissions.
I understand it. Thank you for even entertaining the question. You mentioned under your watch. Camille Russell Love, you've been the executive director of the Cultural Affairs Department under 4 mayors. Is that correct? Is it your arts expertise or your political acumen that's kept you there?
I personally think that it is my administrative ability that has kept me in the job. I don't think that generally people understand that this is a job, this is an administration, I'm actually administering a budget. I'm managing employees, managing programs. And so I think that is where my expertise lies. We have a contract for art services program where we administer $2 million in grants to arts organizations and individual artists on an annual basis. We created a program called the Cultural Experience Project where we ensure that every child in the Atlanta public school system gets to a cultural venue at no cost to them and at no cost to the taxpayer, because we actually go out and raise those funds. That's not part of my budget. To make sure that Atlanta's children know the cultural landscape of Atlanta. We also produce the Atlanta Jazz Festival, and those funds don't come from the city budget. I do get a nominal amount of money from the budget, but years ago, I was presented with a challenge that the city could not contribute to the continuation of the Atlanta Jazz Festival, and if we wanted to have it, we would have to go out and raise the funds. So we began that process of doing that. We have a public art program where the city has, hundreds of artworks in the public domain, and it's our job to keep them as pristine as we can. So we have a conservation and maintenance program that we administer. We also have 3 visual arts galleries where we provide exhibition opportunities to local, national, and international artists in 3 locations. In fact, under Mayor Bottoms, we added the 3rd location. And then we produced the festival that we're doing now, which is a public art festival called Elevate, which has been an opportunity for Atlanta artists to demonstrate how they respond to a particular subject. And again, this year's Elevate deals with social justice. And it has been a presentation of dance, music, spoken word, conversations about the state of Atlanta and the nation and the world as it relates to social justice. And so I have a busy administrative job, and I think that is what has kept me in my job. I came to it, I had a corporate background with IBM. Then I was actually a gallery owner myself for over 10 years. So those 2 experiences, I think, prepared me to come in and deal with not just the art part of the job, but the administrative part of the job.
I remember, and you may recall too, you're a lot younger than me, when Michael Lomax was the first cultural affairs director under Mayor Jackson. Is the state of
Right.
art in Atlanta healthier now, better now than when Mayor Jackson first launched it?
Maynard launched the Office of Cultural Affairs when he became mayor in 1974. I think that's when he began to think about it. I think it was actually launched in 1976.
Yay.
And Maynard had a true appreciation for art and culture. Over the 40-something years since he launched this office, there have been different administrations who have had a different appreciation for art and culture. The office moved from being a commissioner to being what it is now as a director. It has reported through the Department of Parks and Recreation. Now we're in the mayor's office. And so there have been a lot of, there's been a lot of movement of the Office of Cultural Affairs throughout city government. What I don't think there is a clear understanding of is that unless the people at the top appreciate art and culture, then someone who's in my position has to always be the internal advocate to keep this office. And I will say that over the 22 years that I have been in this job, this office has been under threat multiple times. And so,
Really?
yes, there have been recommendations to just completely defund the office. There have been recommendations to cut the funding significantly. Unfortunately, I have worked for mayors who, once presented with that recommendation, have said it's not going to work that way. And so this office has, stayed in place. In fact, Mayor Bottoms actually doubled the amount of money that goes out to the art and culture community. I know that out in the community, there's always this feeling that it's never enough, and they're right. But, the city has a lot of priorities, and I'm just very grateful that there still is an Office of Cultural Affairs and that we are able to be a catalyst in the community for arts and culture.
But again, doesn't that harken back to your political prowess, just keeping the office alive? I know you say you're an administrator, but you must be pretty good in those boardrooms talking about politics too.
Maybe. I don't consider myself a politician. I really consider myself as an arts administrator.
Camille Love, what does art say to Atlanta and about Atlanta and from where you sit? How does the world look at Atlanta's arts community?
Well, I don't know how the world looks at Atlanta's art community. What I see from where I sit is that the community is constantly changing and growing. That there are some inequities in this community because the city is not the only funder of arts and culture in this city. There are foundations, there are corporations who provide funding, and we need to take a good look at whether or not they are equitable in their allocation of their funding, which is a lot more than what the city can provide. And so what I see now, and there are some great advocates for art and culture out in the community, like Heather Infantry, ran a one-person campaign to get the Community Foundation to actually reconsider its grants during this COVID-19 pandemic, where they actually then went back in and looked at their grant procedures and their grant policies and awarded some well-deserving organizations who had been slighted in the first round of funding, actually awarded them significant funds. And so what I see is a very active art community. as well it should be, because artists are the truth tellers in our community. And they have to be the ones to go out and tell their truth and get the support that they need. What the city does is basically provide, in some cases, validation through the funding that we do, and through the publicity that we try to garner through the programming that we do, to encourage private funders and corporations to be supportive of arts and culture in this city. The arts community is one of the largest employers in the city. Now, I don't think a lot of people realize that we have a huge economic impact. And I think that people take for granted art. They don't realize that artists design the pocket square you have in your pocket, that they design the homes and, street signs and the cars that we drive. All of that design is done by artists. And so if we don't support creativity, then we will be a very boring place to live. And what I'm seeing in Atlanta is, especially among the private sector, among the developers now, is a greater appreciation for artists. They're including artists in their building redesigns. They're creating programming that artists can be involved in as an amenity to what they offer to their clients and to the general public that frequents their spaces. Like Atlantic Station and Colony Square, is rolling out a new program that involves a lot of artistic programming. During the Jazz Festival, they have a program called Jazz in the Sky, where you can go up to the top of one of their buildings and listen to jazz. So it is a slow and methodical process to get support for artists, but we're committed to doing it.
How does Atlanta rank nationwide? Are we in the top 5 with regard to artist appreciation and artist development, or however they're ranked? Atlanta's up there, is it not?
Well, I don't know under what measurement you want me to respond. Is it in funding per capita or artistic output? I don't know. I know that Atlanta, when I look at my peer cities around the country,
right, that's what I was asking.
Peer cities, we can't compare ourselves to Chicago and Philadelphia and New York, because they are and have been supported by knowledgeable and committed patrons for decades. Atlanta doesn't have that kind of support for the arts, which, again, brings up the whole conversation about the Community Foundation and their private philanthropy when it comes to arts and culture. I think Atlanta is becoming a more supported city when it comes to arts and culture.
Finally, what's your favorite art? Is it poetry? Is it music? Is it theater? Or what is Camille Russell Love's best choice for art?
I like it all. I hate to give you that kind of answer, but I have been an art patron since I was a child. I was fortunate enough to be in a family that exposed me to art and culture at an early age. So, we all took music lessons. I took dance lessons. I participated in theater. I'm an avid reader. I love movies. I love music, everything. So I just think that being a whole person means that you are experiencing the best of life. And I think that culture is what enhances your life and really makes you a more empathetic person in a lot of ways. So I don't have any favorites. I like it all.
Last question. Arts in all forms seem to be exploding in Atlanta, from movies to music, art on the walls. You still enjoying what you do? Is this the best time?
I love what I do. I mean, I love it. I wake up early every morning with, enthusiasm about doing what it is that I am tasked to do. And the day that I wake up and am not enthusiastic, I'll walk away from it. But, for me, again, it's a lifetime of love and appreciation for artists and for culture. So I don't think I would ever not be engaged and appreciative of art. It's just part of who I am.
Well, thank you for being who you are, the queen of the arts, the impresario of arts in Atlanta. Thank you for talking to me, Camille Russell Love. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.